ॐ श्री परमात्मने नमः। अथ ध्यानम् पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितपुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वानुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी।
We can start. Thank you.
Bidan, you don't want to do the meditation today, or we'll start immediately? You're on mute. We can't hear you.
We'll start with meditation then. It's better then.
Okay.
Everybody, please take a moment and sit straight with your back rested. Take your attention to your breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Just focus on your breath for a few seconds. Now take the attention to your feet. Make sure they're relaxed. To your legs, relax. To your thighs, relax. To your back, relax. To your shoulders, they are generally stressed. Relax them. Take your attention there. To your neck, relax. To the back of your head, relax. Top of your head, relax. Your forehead, relax. Your eyelids, your eyes, relax. Make sure your teeth, your tongue is placed comfortably, relax. Your chest, relax. Stomach, relax. Back to your legs, relax. Take a moment and scan your entire body. Make sure each and every part of your body is completely relaxed. This is your moment. Next 5 minutes, nothing will disturb you. Just relax. Take your focus back to your breath. Your breath would have slowed down by now. Just observe it. Now, we will activate our Agya Chakra, the point between your eyebrows, the place where you put your bindi or tilak. That is a center that enhances your learning and your intuition. Slowly take your attention to the point in between your eyebrows. Focus there. You may feel a tingling sensation and it's absolutely fine. Be there till the time I prompt you. Attention back to your Agya Chakra. Attention back to Agya Chakra. Focus on your Agya Chakra. You are completely settled. You have activated your learning center. Slowly take your attention back to your breath. Observe your breath for a few moments till the time I prompt you next. Be with your breath. Observe your breath. You're completely relaxed, centered. Slowly move your fingers. Rub your palm and place it right in front of your eyes. Allow the energy to be captured. Now slowly open your eyes. Thank you. Let's start. Thanks, Asha. It's actually nice to do this.
Thanks, Bidan. That definitely changes our mindset
Yeah.
from day-to-day work to yeah. So salutations to all our gurus, Adi Shankaracharya, Swami Sarvapriyananda, Swami Paramatmananda, and Swami Aparajatananda. So I have used all of their lectures to come to my understanding about these shlokas. So I'm going to present now. Bidan, we can go to the next slide. So, as we saw previously, right, in the first couple of verses in chapter 1 and some verses in chapter 2, we saw what Arjuna talks about, right? He talks about his sorrow and he expresses his inability to decide or act. And that is where Sri Krishna starts his teaching. Now, whenever we have a similar situation in front of us where we are trying to convince someone, we adopt multiple methods to convince that person. And this is exactly what Sri Krishna is doing. He convinces Arjuna to look at it from a philosophical level. The philosophical level was, you are not this body or mind, and you are that Dehi who's not limited by the physical body. And ignorance is the root cause of all your problems. And here he talks about the importance of knowledge. So that was the first level, right? And then let's assume someone doesn't understand that or is not really at that level yet. So what is the next thing Sri Krishna is telling is, it's at the level of dharma. From the dharma perspective also you need to fight because it's the right thing to do, and this is not conducive to your attainment of heaven after death. This is your second argument. Now let's say someone is not convinced at that level also, and you don't believe in the aspect of heaven and hell or life after death or continuity. But then what do you say? That's the third level he's talking about, where he says you will become infamous. And that is the motivation of the world. Like, okay, what will other people think? You're going to be infamous. So that was actually the second shloka which Sri Krishna says, Kutastva Kashmalamidam, right? So that shloka is, he's talking about all of these three things together. In verse 11, which is Nanu Shochanti Pandita, he talks about the importance of knowledge. And that is a point to be noted, because it's also important to understand what was not said. He did not talk about that, it should be, you should have belief in God, or you should be doing the right religious rituals, and that's the cause of all these problems. He doesn't say that. That shloka is only hinting towards the importance of knowledge. And then in verse 12 and 13, Sri Krishna says, you are the observer, the witness who are always present, and you will go from body to body, right? Now someone says, fine, I understand that, but how do I live in this life now? And that is where verse number 14 comes in. So let me recite the shloka for you. Patra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkada agama paino nitya stam sitikshasva bharata. So Bidan, we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So when we say matra, what is matra? Matra is sense organs. Ma means to measure. Anything that we are using to measure, that by which we know. And we already know about the Pancha Gyanendriyas, which is our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, right? These are matra. And matra sparshastru. Sparsha is things which are touched, things that we experience. So eyes will experience rupa, ears will experience shabda, nose experiences gandha, skin experiences sparsha, and tongue experiences rasa. So this can be looked at as the functioning of the eyes and the experience of seeing. So this is matra sparsha. So what happens when we have matra sparsha? This invokes experiences in the mind. And these experiences are what? Shitoshna. Shita is cold and Ushna is hot, which means pleasure and pain. So these experiences gives rise to knowledge of the world. So our whole life is actually a series of opposite experiences, right? If manam comes, apmanam will be there. If there is happiness when something comes, then there is grief when that thing goes. So it is a series of opposite experiences. So what does this actually mean? It means that it is agama paino, agama paino, which is coming and going. That means it is transient. So these experiences are transient. There is nothing permanent in them, right? Change is the constant in our lives. So we might have liked something when we were kids, and that might have given us a lot of pleasure. The object is still the same, but it doesn't give us the same pleasure anymore. So even though the object is the same, it can result in different experiences as we change. So our need, what happens is our need to constantly hold on to when things are good and resist when things are down. That is what causes the suffering, right? And Swami Paramatmananda puts it very beautifully. And he says, resistance to facts is sorrow. And he takes a very interesting example of electricity. When resistance increases, even in the electricity, when the wire resistance increases, the heat will also increase. So you try to resist facts, what will happen? Sorrow increases, because you are not able to accept what is happening in your life. And our current lives, we have a lot of suffering, and that is dukkhatraya. There are threefold sorrows that we have. Suffering, which is due to the things that are bodily suffering, adhyatmika dukkha, which is bodily suffering and mental anguish. Adhidaivika dukkha, which is caused by daiva, which is from external sources, natural causes, disasters. And thirdly, adi bhautika dukkha, which is caused by other bhutas or living beings. All of these causes suffering. In fact, Buddha says, suffering, suffering, all is suffering, right? So suffering is what we all have to bear in this life. Now, how do we look at it? So what should we do? And what is Sri Krishna saying? Titiksha. What is titiksha? Titiksha is physical endurance and mental patience. We already read in Tattvabodha also, when we were doing Tattvabodha. This is one of the part of fourfold qualifications, sadhana chatushtaya, without which you cannot be a spiritual aspirant. So why does it mean that, okay, if we have titiksha, whatever happens, we just stop doing stuff? Not really. We are saying that we still have to do what we have to do. We should not develop apathy, but we do not go up and down with how it is going, right? So we still completely do our duties, but we develop an equanimity, right, to how we are approaching the problem. So there was another interesting point here, which is how we look at finding the solution to a problem. So finding the solution to a problem because of intolerance is a form of suffering. Improving the situation because it is the right thing to do, right? That comes from a position of strength, right? You don't try to remove the suffering. Somehow you just want to get rid of the suffering, so you're trying to correct it. So that comes from a position of intolerance. Whereas the reverse is you are doing it from a position of strength. So what we are told is we all have the capacity to tolerate pain, endurance or tolerance we all have. So what does it, how does it differ? It differs from person to person, and that pain is not pain if it is within our threshold, right? If something is within our threshold, it is no longer pain. When something goes beyond the threshold, that is when it becomes pain. And how can we increase this threshold? It is through sadhana. So sadhana, and by acquiring knowledge and understanding that all these sorrows are transient. So this is the crux of this shloka. Bidan, we can go to the next one. So this is what he says: O son of Kunti, the contact between the senses and the sense objects gives rise to fleeting perceptions of happiness and distress. And these are non-permanent, transient. They come and go like the winter and summer seasons. O descendant of Bharat, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So he says Kaunteya and Bharata, because to indicate that you are the son of such illustrious people. So you should develop these qualities in you. So that was verse number 14. Bidan, we can go to the next shloka. Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purusharshapha samadukha sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. So we, when we are driving a car in traffic, what happens? We get irritated by the traffic. That irritation leads to anger. Anger leads to himsa, and we end up hurting others. So one of the foremost things is titiksha. And who is dhiraha? Dhiraha is a person with knowledge or discrimination. So Sri Krishna is not saying you need to be a person with a lot of courage. He is saying that you need to have discrimination or knowledge and develop titiksha. So if you are traveling in a road full of potholes, what will we do? We have two options. Either we go repair the road, which as we know is a very difficult thing to do, right? Or we develop shock absorbers. So Sri Krishna is saying we need to develop that kind of shock absorber. And the person who's not unsettled by these ups and downs, who is serene and is not shaken, which is samadukha sukham dhiram, equanimous in happiness and sorrow. So amrita tatvaya kalpate. So that person is fit for immortality, which is fit to be a jivan mukta. Right? Now, why, someone can ask, why is this important for being a spiritual aspirant? And that why is because if we keep going ups and downs, right, with life's sorrow, we will not have any stability of mind to imbibe that actual teaching. And this teaching requires us to go inwards, not outwards. And if we keep going and becoming a yo-yo outside with the life's ups and downs, there will be no time for us to do the Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana that we are supposed to do with these teachings, and to let these teachings percolate within us, right? So this is the crux. So yeah, and with this, I'll hand it over to Suresh, who will take over a very important verse of verse 16, where we are actually going to see how we can actually develop this titiksha, with what tools we can develop the titiksha. Over to you, Suresh. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Asha. So you're putting a lot of pressure on me after saying it's the most important one. So as per Bhagwat Gita, I'm going to consider everything to be important. So this is another verse. Okay. Om Paramatmane Namaha. Nasato vidyate bhavo. Na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubhayorapi drishtontas. Tvanayostatvadarshibhihi. Nasato can be split as na asat. Never has been something which is. Are you able to hear me? Bidan, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. So nasato is split as na asat. That is never a asatya, the untruth. Two words are important here. Nasato bhavaha. So nasato vidyate bhavaha. So never has been an untruth which has given rise to an expression that can stand on its own, or given rise to an existence that can stand on its own. Na bhavo vidyate sataha. Again, na abhavaha. Something which can never exist on its own, cannot be the truth. Out of these two, asat and sat. Drishtonta, something that the seers have concluded. Drishta, something that they have seen and seen the end of it. Drishta anta. So ubhayorapi, of these two, they have concluded that the truth, tattva, is these two by the seers. So why I'm trying to explain this bit by bit is that if we are reciting, if you're able to understand every word of it, it is much more magical. Whoever is possible, if they can recite with me, I'll repeat, please repeat as I say, word by word, and then I'll explain quickly on the rest of the things. Nasato. Just unmute yourselves, please.
Nasato
Vidyate
vidyate
bhavo
bhavo
na bhavo
bhavo
vidyate
vidyate सत्त्वम्
उभयोरपि
उभयोरपि
दृष्टोऽन्तस्
दृष्टोऽन्तस्
अनयोस्
तनयोस्तु
तत्त्वदर्शिभिः
तत्त्वदर्शिभिः
Thank you. So if I can take an example, possibly it'll be more clearer. Now, if I have to boil a vegetable, if we can go to the next slide, please. Then, if I have to boil a vegetable, I'll simply take a vessel, fill water in it, and add the vegetable and put it on a stove under the fire. Now, if I ask the vegetable, how did you get heated? So the vegetable would say, I have no idea. I mean, I would just put into a hot water, boiling water, and I got heated. So the vegetable asked the water, how did you really heat me? So the water again says, no, it's not me who heated you. So let me check with the vessel, because I was put into the vessel. And when the water asked the vessel again says, it's not me. I was simply placed on a fire. And the vessel asks the fire that, did you really heat me, or is it somebody else? And the fire smilingly says, it's me. Heat is fire and fire is heat. It's inherently present in me, intrinsically present in me. The heat is intrinsically present in me. So as the incident of placing the vessel on the stove, under the fire, you have got the heat incidentally. So it's true for the water, it's true for the vegetable as well. So the fire has an inherent and intrinsic ability to generate heat, and the vessel, water, and the vegetable is incidentally heated. So the vessel asks the fire, even if you're put in Siberia, what happens? The fire says, anywhere you put me, however cold it is, I am fire and I am the heat. So here, if you really look at it, if you take the vessel and keep it aside, the heat slowly subsides and it becomes cold. So something which is incidental is impermanent, which means that it's got a arrival and a departure time. So the heat has a certain arrival and a departure time. But with the fire, it's always going to be hot. It is inherently hot. So similarly, if you really look at and go back to ourselves, our body has an arrival and a departure time. And it is when there is an arrival and a departure time, it means that it's impermanent and it's incidental. And our Atman is the one which is intrinsic and swabhavika. So it is called as Swabhavika Dharma and Agantuka Dharma. Something which is absolutely permanent is Swabhavika, and something, the body and the mind, is Agantuka, impermanent. It's got an arrival and a departure time. To put it more deeply, we can take an example of clay. Now, if you design a pot and keep it as a decorative item, and by mistake a child pushes it and it breaks, it's made out of clay. So throughout the cycle, the clay is present. In between, it takes a shape of a pot, and as it breaks, it still remains a clay. So whether it was a pot before it was made or after it was made, the clay was clay. But the pot had an arrival and a departure time. So the clay always remains. It's just the pot which comes and goes. And so beautifully said in this shloka, it's said by God himself, Krishna himself. But he's, just because he's God, people might argue saying that, just because he said, how can I accept it? So he says, it's been seen, experienced by people like you who have become seers, and they have confirmed it. And this is the ultimate truth. So even he puts a seal of people who have really experienced it. And if it is the seers, the Mahagurus who have experienced it, then how can you ever deny it? Of course, as Krishna says, you can't deny it at all. But he again puts another seal of seers. So it means that that's the truth. Simply accept and practice it and become a seer yourself. Somebody, a human being who might be a difficult time, and he's kind of like the pot breaking down at a moment. If he's within a smaller family and everybody knows the history, they will support him, be very sensitive towards him until he's dealing with that issue. But if that person goes out in the social circuit with friends, with relatives and faraway people, interacts, those people are not going to be sensitive, or they might not understand the situation with him. They're going to be normal. And the body-mind, which is impermanent, will suddenly not be able to manage it. It is broken down. It still is not a complete pot. It's a broken pot. How can it hold the water? How can it hold the body? How can it hold that human being? When you come to that consciousness that I am the clay, I'm not the pot, it doesn't matter. I can come back together anytime. I can put my mind together anytime and buy it my body anytime. So it really doesn't matter. Thank you. And Om Paramatmane Namaha. Yeah, the 17th verse can be continued.
I don't have a further presentation of you, Sonali.
I think, Uma, you have it, right? The same one that you had sent it to me on the group?
Yeah, it's the same, the regular one, the presentation, whatever is there, no?
But,
It's only the verse
oh,
and the shloka.
so I have not downloaded it. Shall I share it, or you have it, Uma?
Share it, Sonali.
I'll have to look into it. Just 1 second now. I'm so sorry for this. Shloka 17. Avinashitu tat viddhi yena sarvam midam tatam vinashavyayasya na kaschit kartumarhati. Okay, so the literal meaning of this shloka is, know that Atma to be imperishable, by which the entire existence is pervaded, and no one can bring about the change, about the destruction of this changeless one. I think it's in the next slide, Asha. Okay, so as discussed in verse 16 by Suresh, in brief it says that there is no existence for the unreal, which is anatma, and there is no non-existence for the real, which is atma, which is all present. So atma alone is real. And the crux of the verse 16 was that the wise person who has seen both the real and the unreal, he is called the seer of the truth, and he's called Tattvadarshi. Now moving to verse 17. Here Krishna has explained two nature of Atma. Krishna tells Arjuna that Sat Vastu, this Atma has more glories to it. Firstly, it is indestructible, and second, it is all pervading. And he further, Sri Krishna tells Arjuna that once you understand this, a lot of wrong notions or erroneous notions that you have about yourself and the world around shall disappear. So if we look at the first line of the shloka, Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam. Now Krishna says that the whole creation is pervaded by Atma, that is the consciousness. And Suresh beautifully explained the example of the pot and clay, which he says that the lump of clay is converted into a pot. But when the pot is destroyed or broken, the clay still continues its existence. So in the similar way, Sri Krishna explains Arjuna that, the whole world has no existence by itself. It has borrowed its existence. And from where has it borrowed its existence? From the consciousness, which is ever present. Now, this consciousness, which is there, is perceived by our mind in a very different way. And that is the world that we see. So, when there is no mind, there is no world. That is, when we sleep, the world doesn't exist for us. So let us understand that, our mind acts as a medium to distort the truth. That is the consciousness which is ever present and always presents as the untruth, that is the world. So this is the first as to, that consciousness is all pervading. Now let's move to the second nature of Atma. Here Krishna presents Atma as indestructible. If you look at the first sentence, he says that Avinashi. He says that it is eternal and no one can destroy it. Tat Avinashi. And the second line says that Kaschit Vinasham Kartum Marhati. Now, the literal meaning of this sentence is nobody can destroy this Atma. Not even God can destroy this Atma. And so we see on the battlefield that Arjuna had, put down his weapons and he doesn't want to fight. So Shri Krishna further explains Arjuna that you are saying that, Bhishma will be killed, Drona will be killed. And so you don't want to, you don't want your near and dear ones to be killed. But nobody can destroy this Atma, which is indestructible, which is imperishable. Now, even when we refer to, we go back to Shloka 11, if we look at it, it says that Bhishma, Drona and Kripa were all sages and who knew this truth. So they are not to be grieved for. And he's saying you are not the reason for. He's explaining Krishna. Krishna is explaining Arjuna that you are not the reason for the death of these your beloved ones. These your beloved ones. It is this knowledge that has kept Bhishma and others unperturbed during the war itself. So we can conclude by saying that the Atma, which is in you, which is in us, which is in your friends, which is in your enemies, relatives, animals, ants, plants, etc., they are one and the same. So bodies are different, but the consciousness is one and the same. And that is why when we say, the Lord is in everybody's heart in the form of Atma. So it says that the shloka we can conclude by, Atma Nitya, that is Atma is permanent, Atma Satyam, that is Atma is Satya, real, and Atma Sarvagataha, that is Atma is all pervading, everywhere. I would also like to, place attention to one word here called Vidhi. You know, so I was just going through the Gita, and every verse of Gita stresses on one particular word. So here I found Vidhi very interesting, and it says that, so I went back to see the meaning of Vidhi. So Vidhi means you know this fact. So Krishna is telling Arjuna Vidhi, you know this fact, you ascertain this fact, and you internalize this fact. And what is this fact Sri Krishna is talking about is that Atma is again uh, all-pervading and indestructible. So as learners or seekers of truth, we also need to internalize, ascertain and know this fact that we are immortal beings and we cannot be destroyed. So that's all from my side. I just want to add something here, So when I was, I always had this question. I had asked Vidan also earlier, and in Twame also, looking within was something which I always had a question as to what is it exactly looking within. And that time I had got a different answer. It was you're looking at acceptance and things like that. But here, uh, looking within, I found that because Atma is present in every one of us, when we start, I mean, see, I find it very difficult when people say, look within, look within, the Atma is there and you'll find the truth there. And it is intellectual level, I understand everything. But at an experiential level, it is very, very difficult for me to, but of late, since past few months, it's only sometimes I experience this deep, subtlest form of peace within me, especially in the morning times when I sit for meditation. And I think that is what is looking within. I have no, that is what is looking within for me. So that's all from my side. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonali. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Suresh. Thank you, Asha. What has come out beautifully again today, and this is what we are also trying to do, is that when we are looking at those shlokas, let us try and relate to our own personal life and experiences, because then it creates meaning for us. And I could see all three of them have done this very beautifully today. Not to kind of just intellectually talk about what is written there, but relate to how you experience this particular aspect in this shloka on a day-to-day lives. And that's something very appreciable. Now, I just have another 5 minutes or 7 minutes to quickly recap what we have done so far and what we have done today. So if you look at it, how it has been going so far is this, that Krishna wants to motivate Arjuna to do his dharma. And he knows that Arjuna is completely devastated emotionally. And Asha very nicely started it off. And what is being told that you should be able to endure the pleasure and pain just as you endure the cold and heat. This is what has been told. And you should remain sthita pragya, or you should remain calm, or you should remain patient with all these aspects. Point taken, we all know about it, but the point is how? How do we do it? And again, Asha very nicely brought this out, that there are two ways to do it. One is sadhana, second is jnana, knowledge. right? Sadhana are a lot of practices people do, including mantra sadhana, yoga in its truest manner. And second is understanding who we truly are. So right now, the focus is more on jnana, understanding. How do we improve our understanding of ourselves to increase our endurance? Again, beautifully explained, which I love the analogy, that anything which is within the limits is called a situation, isn't it? We say that we have a situation. Situation typically means that there is some sort of a problem, but I can manage it. But when it goes beyond my limit, it becomes a pain. So what is that limit? That limit is endurance. So how do we increase my endurance so that nothing qualifies as a pain, everything qualifies itself as a situation? And one thing again, Asha very nicely said, that the only way you can do so is by being with the path of least resistance. There has to be least resistance with the now. And the example which was taken, that when electricity passes through a wire and the resistance is too much, the wire burns itself. And this is exactly which happens to all of us. We end up burning ourselves if there is a resistance to what is happening in this current moment. So again, the point comes back that, okay, we should be able to endure the pleasure and pain with least amount of resistance. That is what has been told, isn't it? And again, beautiful words, absolutely fantastic concept. Again, you come back to asking how. One, of course, is sadhana, and second is jnana. Now, when coming to the knowledge, so what Sri Krishna is basically doing is, he is basically trying to shift Arjuna's perspective to understand who truly he is. And where he's trying to say that, look, you are beyond this body and mind. You, who are you? You are the Atman. And then he kind of tries to tell that this Atman is all pervading. Generally, what we have learned in our understanding is that there is one Atma inside you, one Atma inside me, and it travels from one body to another. However, we have clarified in our Tattva Bodha session that there is one pervading consciousness, one pervading Atman, which is called Brahman, right? And what travels from one body to another is basically Sukshma Sharira. So the point here, what they're trying to say, and then if we take the attention to the fact that we are that Atman, we are that Brahman, that is Sat, that is the only truth. Everything else that appears as a body and mind is nothing but manifestation of Atman. And that is what he's trying to explain Arjuna, right? So the way Suresh brought an example wonderfully was of a clay, that if you use a clay to build a pot, now what appears to us is a pot. What everybody sees is a pot. So what everybody sees is a name and a form, which is a pot. But when the pot breaks, ultimately it becomes clay. So the clay never breaks, because clay is the inherent nature, is the substratum of the pot. So the pot may become some other things, but the clay remains as it is. And therefore, what we should do is, we should look at our essential nature, which is Atman, which is the truth. And the truth is something which was always there, which has a no beginning, and which always will be, which will have no end. And also, important thing is that it is changeless. Say, for example, when a person from 4-year becomes to 5-year, that 4-year is no longer there. From 5-year to 6-year, the 5-year is no longer there, right? So the body and the mind is constantly changing, but you, the consciousness, you, the awareness, is changeless. So you have no beginning, you have no end, and you are changeless. What is changing? What is changing is basically your body and mind, right? So as Asha again told that, look, how the interaction happens, your sense organs basically take the information and creates the pleasure and pain within you, right? So somewhere there is an interaction which is happening at an external surface, and there are a lot of interaction which is happening at an external surface. But that is not the truth. Similarly, when you go into dream, in the dream you will experience bad dreams and good dreams. But actually, the dream is nothing but the interaction of my thoughts. Just as the waking state is nothing but the interaction of your thoughts and your sense organs, similarly, dream is nothing but the interaction of your thoughts. But what again Shri Krishna is trying to say, that whether it is the interaction of the waking universe, whether it is the interaction of the dream universe, everything is fleeting. Everything is moving from one thing to another. So do not get too consumed by those elements which are always changing. Rather, take your attention to that very fact which is changeless, which is the very Atman that you truly are. So once you move your attention from the fleeting, changing things in your life to the very changeless, you will be able to do what is required. So this is what essentially Shri Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna through this Jnana Yoga, by telling him, giving him this appropriate knowledge, hoping that once you have this knowledge internalized within yourself, then there will be a certain amount of calmness, there will be a certain amount of clarity, and with that clarity, you will be able to focus on your dharma, which is what Arjuna is supposed to do. Are we able to see the plot? Are we able to see how it is getting engaged? Are we able to see how it is getting developed? Is everyone okay with it? Right. Now we are open for questions now. We have another 5 minutes. Or a discussion. It may not necessarily be a question. For next 5 minutes, we can just express. If we have questions, please feel free to ask. If we have no question, express what you want to talk about it. And I would like to encourage all those who haven't spoken, who haven't presented, who are on a listening mode, to kind of say if anything actually makes sense to you, or something that you kind of make sense of it.
Anya, I have a question. Like, I think from the last chapter, when we were we started the second chapter, I just wanted to know, like, on what basis Arjuna selected Krishna as his advisor, or you can say how he chosen in the middle of the war zone, that Krishna is a person who should, whatever he's saying, he can go through it, or though he may not be knowing whether Krishna is God or not, or he was knowing that. He was aware of it? No. I don't think so. Was he not that time in the second chapter? Till the second chapter started, right? See, you means you explained that till first chapter Krishna didn't spoke anything, right? Because Arjuna was in too much turmoil. Many things were going on and he was too much emotional. So Krishna was waiting for the right moment, that let the things get settled down, then I will start, right? But okay, that was his decision. But how Arjuna took his decision, because Krishna was not a new person to him, right? He knew Krishna since long, right? And in spite, not just Krishna, there were many gurus he knew, right? But still select. How come he got into the situation that he selected Krishna in the middle of the war? In spite of, he could have consulted any of his gurus also, or anybody, his old elder, you can say elder brother also. Yudhishthir was a dharam guru, right? So he could have consulted anybody. How he chosen Krishna and rely on it, like him? I don't know.
Anybody has a view on this before I kind of bring it out from where I am coming from? No one? Okay. Yeah.
Is the question okay?
No, it's absolutely valid question and the right question. So when the way Bhagwat Gita is written, so we have to kind of keep few things in mind. This Bhagavad Gita was written not by Sri Krishna or Arjuna, it was written by Vyasa. Correct? It was written by Vyasa. And it is written in which language? Sanskrit. While the Sanskrit was the words which was used by the scholars, not by regular fighters. Also, Bhagavad Gita was written in a very poetic meter. It is but very natural that Shri Krishna, in the middle of the battle, would not be speaking to Arjuna in a very poetic way, that too in Sanskrit. Right? What is important to understand here is that Vyasa was considered omnipresent and omnipotent. He had abilities to see what is going in the war. He was able to perceive all that which was happening in Mahabharata war. And he was seeing the discussions, the dilemmas, the confusions, everything which was going in everybody's mind. And then, having seen that, having witnessed that, he has composed Bhagavad Gita in a specific meter. So, what we need to understand here is, and that is where a lot of time the confusion happens, that what was happening, how when Shri Krishna was giving Updesha to Arjuna, what was Duryodhana doing? Was he also sitting and trying to listen? Or this happened in a split of a moment because he is God and the time is relative? So there are all kind of questions which will come from a perspective of the chronology of the event. What I'm trying to say here is that it is written by Vyasa in a poetic meter, in trying to bring out the very essence of the discussions which was happening between Shri Krishna and Arjuna. So specifically understanding moment by moment will be little difficult. To be very specific to your question, Shivani, again, is that did Arjuna knew that Shri Krishna was God? Of course, he had that inclination. Of course, there were too many places where they were into real trouble, and Shri Krishna came as a very strong advisor for them to help them in multiple situations that has happened before. And therefore, it can happen to any one of you as well. Say, for example, Shivani, you have a very close friend of yours, and you get into certain amount of complications in your life. It is but very natural that you will go and confide to someone whom you trust. So to answer your question, Arjuna trusted Shri Krishna. And that is why when the option was given to Arjuna that either you choose between me or my entire army, what did Arjuna choose? Arjuna chose Shri Krishna. And where Shri Krishna clearly said that I am also not going to fight. So you have to choose between a person like me who is not going to fight versus my entire army. And Duryodhana chose his entire army, but Arjuna chose Shri Krishna, knowing very well he is not going to fight because he knew that his advice is extremely precious. Now
Yeah,
he
because
knew.
the rest of all the gurus were already on the other side, right? So he must be needing some advisor. Means a good
I'm just
one.
saying, I'm also
Yeah.
speculating along with you, but I'm just saying the answer to your question is that why did Arjuna went to Shri Krishna? Because there were multiple times Shri Krishna has helped the Pandava brothers, and Arjuna has chosen Shri Krishna earlier against the entire army. So somewhere he had that faith, that inclination to listen to Shri Krishna. And in the moment of complete duress and distress, he surrendered himself to Shri Krishna, knowing that he will be able to give him the right guidance. So that's how the chronology can be constructed. Does it make sense?
They could have plotted everything before war or before going to the war zone also. He could have consulted him.
He always consulted him, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is why Shri Krishna was his Sarathi.
Sorry, what you just said?
He always consulted him, and therefore Shri Krishna was his Sarathi.
Sarthi.
Right?
Yeah.
Krishna was his Sarathi.
Okay.
So we can look at it like also he was like a consultant who was who used to help Arjuna, and Arjuna used to rely very much on him. But we can see, if you just want to go by evidences, probably he didn't know that Sri Krishna was God or something. And the real, he even, in fact, chapter 11, you will see 42, 43 verses. He says that I have addressed you as friend while I have not known you. Now I have seen what you are. So forgive me for what I would have spoken to you in the ways that I have spoken to you. So there are evidences also that, so somewhere in between. So we can actually, with that, we can actually conclude that, he was not knowing that he was God, but at least he was aware that he is an extremely wise person. So that is something which, we can take away from that.
He was
Actually,
aware.
sorry.
He was aware. Not only he, everybody were aware.
Everybody, yes.
That everybody were aware that he was a person with the maximum capabilities and very unbiased and a very good sense of direction. That is why he was sent as a person for a peace treaty also.
Yes,
So
that's correct.
the counter side of it, even the Kauravas or the Duryodhana also knew it, but the question was accepting it. He did not want to accept the fact. He knew that Krishna was a person of much more capabilities than anything, but he did not want to do it. And coming from I don't know if it's going to make any relevance over here. Yes. The flip side of your question is, why did Krishna also choose Arjuna for Bhagwat Gita and not the other people? Krishna, one side is Arjuna chose Krishna, the other side is Krishna also chose Arjuna for thing. Coming from the Puranic side of the whole thing, yes, Krishna and Arjuna were disciples of a very famous guru, and they were called Nara and Narayana in some of their previous birth. So in this, when the Mahabharata happened, or in this form of Narayana, he chose him because that he wanted to express himself, or he wanted to come out as the Narayana through his friend and through his person who was his Sahapati in his Gurukula. That is the Puranic aspect of it. That is the Puranic. This is the current time, if you see. Yes, Yudhishthira was already in the thing of Dharma, whatever it was there. And Arjuna was chosen because Arjuna came from a space like any one of us. He was good. He was good in everything. He excelled in everything. But still he had all the qualities, or all the dilemma, all the thing of any such human being may have.
Yeah, and I guess Krishna chose Arjuna probably because he wanted to be on the side of Dharma. I think that's...
No, he could have chosen Yudhishthira also.
Right.
He knew Yudhishthira already knew the Dharma, and Bhishma also knew the Dharma, whatever it was there.
Yeah, actually giving it a practical aspect to the same question, actually I just wanted to understand, like, if we keep this question, if we use this knowledge in our like day-to-day life or in our practical nowadays life, so like I just wanted to understand how Arjuna selected Krishna. Like, how could we select somebody? He can be our advisor or not, if we're stuck in a situation, right? Like we do keep getting stuck in situations, right? That's so common. So how we can understand that, yeah, this is the right person to consult to, and he can be like same for Arjuna, the Krishna was, though he was not aware. We are also not aware who is like God or who is near God, not near, how much, whatever. But how could we then able to understand, like, okay, this is the right person for us, and that way.
What do you mean question, Shivani? In fact, this makes sense. That how do I choose my advisor? Isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, same, like practically what Arjuna did here, like in the middle of the war zone, even he chosen Krishna
So I
to
guess let the
advise.
question here, maybe from the last thing. See, when it comes to Guru Shishya relationship,
Yeah.
You cannot ever choose your Guru.
Okay.
The Guru will choose you when the time is. And this has been clearly told that you cannot choose your Guru. The Guru chooses you when it comes to a guru-shishya relationship.
Okay, but what in case of our advisor or counselors, which we keep choosing?
I think that will be a trial and tested method.
Okay. Then we have to use our common sense something.
There are a lot of advisors, counselors here, they will be able to help.
No, that is there. Just like
in terms
how
of how to choose, for example, what you're asking is, how do you choose your trainer? How do you choose your personal trainer?
Yes.
Right? What kind of an exercise?
Or you can say mentor, means something like that. Yeah.
So it's a little try and tested method over here. You have to try and hope that someone fits your bill. All right, then. Thank you so much. And let's.
Thank you so much to everybody.
So we can just end with a prayer, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Vasudeva sutam devam kamsa chanuramardanam devagi paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah sarve santu niramaya sarve bhadrani pashyantu ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti.
Thank you, Asha.
Thank you.
Thank you.